The Life of Hayase Nagatoro. Don't Toy With Me, Miss Nagatoro. Hayase Nagatoro is one of the two main characters of the Don't Toy With Me, Miss Nagatoro manga series, and anime series, of course. She's a high school student who likes to tease and bully her senpai, the other main character, although she secretly harbors strong feelings for him. Nagatoro is an energetic, athletic, popular, and rather sadistic, but deep down, very sweet girl, often referred to as a sadodere. She is part of a cool kids clique together with her friends Gamo-chan, Yoshi, and Sakura, and is a member of the swimming club despite also having a liking for martial arts such as muay thai, boxing, capoeira, and especially judo, whom eventually led her to join the judo club as well. Her friends affectionately call her with the pet name Hayacchi, although this sometimes seems to be an annoyance to her. Welcome to the Amagi, and today we're going over the life of Hayase Nagatoro, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. The Amagi's reach stretches beyond just this channel, so if you're a fan of us, please consider subscribing to our other channels and following us on all of our social media accounts. Help us reach our goal of passing 100,000 followers on all of our accounts by the end of the year. Background: Hayase was born April 1st in Hayama, Kanagawa. She grew up in a house in the suburbs right in front of a park, under a 7-Eleven. Okay, I've been to Japan once, and their 7-Elevens are amazing. Living under a 7-Eleven is amazing. Good job to whoever chose that spot. Anyway, Hayase was a bedwetter until at least the age of 7. As a child, she went every year to the summer festival with her family, enjoying the fireworks contest at the beach, and also she visited the zoo. At some point in her early youth, she also started to study martial arts at Gamo Fighting Gym, winning several kid championships and making friends with both the owner's daughter, Gamo-chan, and her childhood friend Yoshi. However, after meeting Orihara in the very first dojo they both went to, a girl with whom she never really got along with despite the latter thinking that Nagatoro was her friend, everything changed since the initially talentless Orihara, that at first was always defeated by Nagatoro, started training harder and harder until one day she managed to overwhelm her in a single move, unintentionally causing Nagatoro to lose all her passion and ultimately quit. The event was very traumatic to the girl and apparently shattered her self-esteem, leading Nagatoro to become convinced that Orihara is someone she simply couldn't beat. After beginning to attend Kazehaya High School, Nagatoro, Gamo-chan, and Yoshi were all placed in the same class, 1C, where they became friends with Sakura, who eventually joined their group. Meeting Senpai. One afternoon, while chatting with her friends in the school library, a second-year student walked in trying to stay unnoticed, until the pages of a manga he drew fell on the floor and are immediately spotted by the girls, who started to mercilessly criticize and make fun of him. Nagatoro was the only one who remained after her friends left the room, and then mocked her senpai, noticing the manga protagonist was a self-insert of him, but acted more manly than he could ever do. Crushed, the boy started to cry, and she gently wiped his tears away with her handkerchief, cheerfully apologizing for having bullied him, and ran away. The following day, she approached the boy in the school corridor right out of her art club room, discovering he was its only member. He gave her back her handkerchief and told her to go away, but instead she proposed to model for him as an apology for having bullied him the previous day. Sexily told him that if he made a good paint of her, she would give him a reward. However, due to the final result being more similar to a sketch since he was too embarrassed to look at her for more than a second, she started to mock him again and reduced him to tears for the second time. The following day, Nagatoro met Senpai on the street and started to tease him once more. Then she asked him why he never got mad at her, despite the fact that she did a lot of messed up things to him, to which he answered that he doesn't dislike talking with her. After this, she formally introduced herself to him, despite preventing him from doing the same, saying that she preferred to call him just Senpai. After this, the two formed a weird friendship-like relationship and quickly became inseparable. Nagatoro started hanging out in the art club room daily after class. In one occasion, she mocked the manga Senpai read, calling it lewd, and causing an incident after which they both tumbled down and her right hand accidentally landed on the boy's groin, which embarrassed them both. While in another occasion, she tried to reenact a vampire movie they saw on TV and bite his neck, pinning Senpai to the ground, but backing off at the last minute due to the garlic in his breath from the yakisoba he previously ate. Despite her usual coldness towards boys, Nagatoro visibly started to enjoy Senpai's company, sexily teasing him at every occasion, even for the simplest thing like washing their hands together. She also kept forcing him to draw her, even bringing a sofa in the art club room so she could do several different poses. Due to Senpai having difficulties in drawing her, after a while, Nagatoro felt sleepy and shifted position one more time to lie down for a moment, reminding him he would get a reward if he painted her well enough. After she woke up, the girl discovered he managed to paint her and, keeping her promise, kissed him on the cheek. Over time, she even started to get concerned about hurting his feelings and tried to help Senpai respond to his disses, telling him to hit her shoulder to make a comeback. However, as he did it, he accidentally hit Nagatoro's chest instead of the shoulder, making them both embarrassed but resolving the tension. Dude, saying this is so weird because you watch it and it's just like, oh great, but then you say it and it's just like, oh no. Introducing Senpai to her friends. One day, Nagatoro invited Senpai to have lunch with her, Yoshi, and Gamo-chan at the school cafeteria, introducing him as her boyfriend. Getting jealous, her two friends started to tease him and call him names, causing the girl to get angry and eventually defend him, prompting Senpai to admit he wasn't actually her boyfriend. The two burst out laughing at the futility of his statement and apologized to him, admitting he was a very funny guy. Afterwards, Nagatoro has a nipple poke game, with Senpai using a special ticket as a prize that would have forced the loser to do anything the winner would have ordered. She won and told him that one day, once he forgotten about it, she would use the ticket, warning him to be prepared. One day, Nagatoro pierced her earlobe to prevent it from completely healing, and pranked Senpai, suggesting to pierce his ear too so they can have a matching pair of earrings, but instead barely poked his ear, asking if he was disappointed that she hadn't made a hole in his body. Also, she found out that he inserted a character with her likeness in his manga, being quite amused about it, and when the students have started to wear the summer uniform, allowed her to see how skinny Senpai's arms were, and offered to train him. However, due to his laziness, Senpai stated that he would only do training if it was possible to do it without moving, prompting Nagatoro to order him to get on all fours and ride him like a horse for muscle training until two girls passed by the corridor and saw them, making her very self-conscious, leading her to jump off while Senpai collapsed to the ground. Sometime later, noticing his hair has gotten too long, Nagatoro proposed to cut Senpai's hair for him, like she often did for her brother. However, after she left the art club room to borrow a comb, Yoshi and Gamo-chan entered and, seeing the electric razor that Nagatoro left behind, decided to try to shave Senpai. However, he opposed them, shouting that he already promised to Nagatoro he would have his hair cut by her. In that moment, she returned, causing her friends to run off. Then, Nagatoro cut Senpai's hair, and they shared a sweet moment as he thanked her. The following day, after being caught in a storm, Nagatoro and Senpai seeks refuge under a gazebo in the park. Then, after it gets worse, she asks him if he wanted to stop by her house, where they clean off, change clothes, enjoy a cup of tea, and started playing video games. You damn well know that Senpai was winning until Nagatoro cheated, but we're not going to talk about that. Anyway, while departing, Nagatoro told Senpai that they should do it again sometime. One day, after her friends pranked Senpai by making him touch Gamo-chan's breasts, and Nagatoro saw it, she was utterly mortified, but Senpai quickly explained the girl was actually stuffing anpan under her shirt. This caused Nagatoro to cheer up and laugh about it as a hilarious prank. Relieved, Nagatoro offered him to try pinching her upper arm, revealing only after he did that the upper arm's texture was the same of boobs. But in the anime, what happened was Nagatoro tried to do the same prank, but what ended up happening is one of the anpan fell while he was touching the other anpan, and then when he shifted to the other one, he was basically touching her boobie. That's what happened, and they were both embarrassed, and Nagatoro beat him up for it. Summer break, which is, I guess, the unofficial name of the arc that occurs during summer. At the beginning of summer, Nagatoro and Senpai went to a place she knew to get some shaved ice. However, they discovered a massive crowd of people lined up in front of it. Nagatoro stubbornly decided that they would have to wait their turn in line, prompting Senpai to protect her twice. Once from people who tried to ogle her due to her uniform getting transparent because she was sweating so much, and the second time was from getting heat stroke. Eventually, he dragged her out of the line to a vending machine and brought her some drinks to prevent her from getting dehydrated, impressing and deeply moving Nagatoro, who goes to the convenience store to buy some ice cream, just like Senpai previously suggested. She even composed a haiku to celebrate the moment and offered an embarrassed Senpai to feed him. The day before summer break began, Nagatoro asked Senpai to exchange mail contacts and was overjoyed after he accepted. When he told her there was nothing special in having his line ID, she sweetened up and tenderly said that she believed otherwise. Then, after parting ways, she sent Senpai some cat stickers that said pervert because she was looking at him from behind as he was staring at the drink because, you know, indirect kisses and stuff. The next day, Nagatoro invited Senpai to join her and her friends at the beach. After arriving, she became quite jealous that the boy briefly ogled her friends because they had the bigger boobies, and was visibly upset when, after Gamo-chan proposed they go swimming all together, he refused, taking a sketchbook out of his bag to begin drawing. Then, albeit unable to fully enjoy it due to feeling bad about Senpai, Nagatoro has a swimming competition with her friends/rival, who also tried to cheer her up, saying that if he didn't want to swim, they wouldn't force him to. However, Nagatoro went to him and asked what was going on, prompting him to confess that he couldn't swim and had a huge fear of getting sunburned. Nagatoro offered him some sunscreen, stripped him, and said she would rub it on him. To which an embarrassed senpai said that it was something a boyfriend and girlfriend would do, pointing out that they weren't. Feeling irrationally offended by his words, Nagatoro pinned him to the ground and started to rub the lotion on him with her foot in retaliation. However, both of her friends soon joined her in giving Senpai said treatment, prompting Nagatoro to stop after using the whole bottle and fully covering him in sunscreen. Then the whole group ended up having a good time, making another swimming competition together, playing with sand, and eating ramen at the beachside. The next morning, she asked Senpai on the phone how he felt about having come to the beach with them, and he admitted that it was actually fun. The night of the summer festival, Nagatoro was forced to go to school due to having special club practice, thus she informed her friends about it. That evening, however, after she finished her duties and was in the locker room with the club president, she apologized for having to make her stay until that late and asked if she planned to go to the festival with someone. Nagatoro blushed and thought of Senpai, prior to receiving a notification on her smartphone and saw that Gamo-chan had sent her a picture of her and Yoshi at the festival with Senpai. The plan set by her friend was to make her jealous, thus prompting her to come. And judging by how Nagatoro literally ran from her school to the festival, the plan worked. There she discovered that Senpai was held prisoner by her friends. In order to cover up the reason why she ran from school to the festival, she lied and said that she finished earlier and only came here because she was free. Wanting to tease her friend/rival about her feelings for Senpai, Gamo-chan told her that if she wanted to free him, she had to defeat them in some games at the festival. Competitive as always, Nagatoro accepted the challenge, but not without insisting that she didn't care for Senpai at all. They began with a shooting game, splitting for a 2 vs 2 team battle in which the winner is the pair who manages to get the most decent prizes. Paired in the same team with Senpai, Nagatoro asked him why she was at the festival, to which he lied that he wanted a change of pace. But Nagatoro replied asking if he was waiting for her to invite him, making him blush since it was the truth. She then pointed out that if there was a place he wanted to go with someone, he had to invite that person himself. After playing some other games, Nagatoro and Senpai managed to win a big Squiddy plush, and, knowing Yoshi collected them, Nagatoro gave it to her, thus bribing her and winning the contest. Gamo-chan immediately freed Senpai from the collar and left together with Yoshi in order to let the pair enjoy some time alone at the festival. Then, Nagatoro and Senpai decided to wander around the festival together, eating takoyaki and cotton candy. After a while, Nagatoro expressed that it felt like a date, before quickly correcting herself, adding she was joking. Nagatoro suggested, though, that she could play pretend and gave him a taste of what dating felt like, so she asked if he wanted to try holding hands. But before he could answer, the fireworks started, causing Nagatoro to get anxious as she loved their town's fireworks, despite Senpai admitting he only saw them once in primary school. Nagatoro and Senpai found the fireworks contest on the beach too crowded, so Senpai grabbed her by the hand to prevent her from getting caught between the crowd due to her short stature, and dragged her to a spot in the woods from which they had a great view of the fireworks. Feeling uncomfortable for the rather romantic situation, Nagatoro started teasing Senpai, asking what he was thinking bringing a girl to a dark spot like that. And of course, calling him a perverted virgin. Realizing from his past experience that Nagatoro gets embarrassed pretty easily herself, Senpai decided to give her a taste of her own medicine, asking her what she meant by lewd stuff. Too ashamed to answer, Nagatoro started to stutter something regarding embracing and kissing, claiming that anyway, there wasn't a chance he could do something like that, causing Senpai to ask her if she believed she could. Despite stating she totally could, after the fireworks lighten up the place, it's revealed that there were a lot of couples kissing all around them, which causes them both to get embarrassed and run away to see the fireworks quietly in a more hidden place. New semester. The first day of the new semester, after class, Nagatoro sat at the gazebo in a park close to her home, chatting with Gamo-chan, Yoshi, and Sakura when they were approached by a couple of boys who started to hit on them. She tried to ignore them, annoyed as always, until Senpai, who was looking at them from a distance, too embarrassed to come any closer, was greeted by Gamo-chan, who asked to sit with them. giving Senpai enough confidence to propose Nagatoro to walk home with him. Nagatoro accepted and was soon joined by her friends, who then leave the two guys behind, which, this isn't in the script, but you could totally tell on their faces they were like, who the hell is this guy? Anyway, after Senpai asked if it was okay for the girls not to stay, they told him that those two guys were annoying and started to jokingly tease him. All 5 of them smiled heartily. The next day, while passing by the corridor, Nagatoro saw her friends dragging Senpai inside their classroom, closing the door behind, and eavesdropped from behind it. Hearing Sakura intending to, quote-unquote, jerk off the boy, which causes Nagatoro to get jealous and storm into the room angered, only to discover that she misunderstood the situation and she was trying to yank off a splinter that went inside his finger. Frustrated yet too prideful to admit it, she simply took the tweezers from Sakura and yanked off Senpai's splinter herself as her friends applauded. A few days after this, while they were walking home together, Nagatoro challenged Senpai to a game of rock, paper, scissors, in which the loser would have to carry the winner's luggage until they reached the following crossroads. After losing the first match, a sulking Nagatoro found herself forced to carry Senpai's bag. Then, winning the second, the boy carried hers, and after she won the third, the girl forced him to give her a piggyback ride. However, while doing it, Senpai's grip on Nagatoro started to slip, so he did that thing to bring her up a bit and accidentally touched her upper thigh, which caused Nagatoro to jump off and, with minimal explanation, run away with a nervous and terrified expression on her face. Honestly, the expression is super cute in both the manga and anime. After seeing Senpai's poor performance at the school marathon, Nagatoro playfully told him that, as his kohai, she was embarrassed for him. However, when he replied that all he can do was draw, she was greatly bothered, getting so motivated and angered by his lack of self-confidence that she would want to begin personally training him. The following day, despite being a weekend, she forced the introverted boy to join her in a marathon training, turning him on due to her attire and causing him to stare at her sweaty and barely covered behind while running their 5-kilometer route. Thus, he augmented his pace in order to stay in front of Nagatoro and not risk being accused of perverted thoughts. Senpai is already sus as and he's just trying to avoid Nagatoro noticing. Great. However, after covering half of the route, Senpai collapsed and asked to stop, causing Nagatoro to insult him to provoke him, going as far as to slap her own butt, telling him to try to catch her if he was really angry. Senpai reprised the run angrily, causing Nagatoro to smile and sweetly told him to do his best. After the school cafeteria, where Nagatoro and her friends usually chat, has been invaded by a group of boys they deemed as loud and annoying, the girls turned to the teachers, but they told them to solve it on their own, prompting them to decide to hang out in the art club room instead, while Sakura is working on seducing them one by one in order to sow seeds of jealousy in the group and making it collapse as they all began to compete for her attention. After they explained the situation to Senpai, complaining on how all men are driven primarily by their sexual desires, Gamo-chan teased Nagatoro, stating that Senpai instead doesn't have any libido, prompting Nagatoro to make a bet with her friend that if she found a lewd book hidden in the room by him, she would have proved he was actually a quiet pervert. Nagatoro turned the room upside down. Senpai yelled he's not hiding anything, to which both Yoshi and Gamo-chan agreed, despite Nagatoro stating that he was losing his cool since she was about to find his porn. After a while, he began to feel bad about Nagatoro losing the bet since she was, in a certain way, doing it for him, and, taking advantage of the moment of distraction from the girls, he snuck inside the prep room where he found his, manga, and took it and allowed Nagatoro to find it. The girl was overjoyed and started to playfully tease him while her friends watched the scene perplexed. A few days after this, Sakura began getting stalked by one of the many boys who compete for her attention. Thus, she asked Senpai to pretend to be her boyfriend in order to discourage him from continuing. Jealous, Nagatoro tried to convince her friend to change her mind, calling Senpai dangerous as a vermin. But she was ignored and caused the opposite effect, convincing Senpai to play along with the gal's plan. The following day, being Saturday, Senpai and Sakura went on their fake date while Nagatoro, Gamo-chan, and Yoshi followed them, recording everything with their smartphones. Gamo-chan teased Nagatoro, saying it was like an anime plot when two people went on a fake date, but real feelings start to blossom, thus getting her friend frustrated despite firmly refusing to admit it. Before Senpai and Sakura could get too close, Nagatoro captured the stalker and forced him to promise that he would never do it again. Having put an end to the charade, Nagatoro began to mock Senpai for ruining his first date by telling him that it was probably too soon for him to do such things. However, he smiled and agreed. One day, while they were all in the art club room, Nagatoro told Gamo-chan and Yoshi how she scared Senpai with the idea of repeating 1 year and being in the same class, thus making him frantically study to pass the exam. Amused, the three girls started to toy with the idea of what would they do if he failed the grade twice, thus making them his senpais. However, as Senpai started to fear the three girls would have enslaved him if that ever happened, Sakura reassures Senpai that it won't happen because other than Nagatoro, both she and the other two girls will have to take supplementary lessons due to their low academic results. Embarrassed, both Gamo-chan and Yoshi asked Senpai to tutor them, making Nagatoro jealous. Culture Festival. Overhearing that Senpai had been dumped by a guy that he asked to model for his exhibition at the school's culture festival, Nagatoro proposed to be his model instead, if he begged her. Nagatoro's intention to be praised, however, faded as the boy refused the offer, since he considered it too hard to draw the female figure, especially hers. Due to the girl's insistence, Senpai eventually decided to tell her he would have used her as a model only if she posed cosplaying in her infamous Nagatoro version. Sure enough that she would refuse. The following week, much to his surprise, an utterly ashamed Nagatoro showed herself into the art club room wearing a perfect Nagatoro costume that she asked the handicrafts club to make her, and insisted for him to say something, getting really mad when he simply complimented how the outfit was well made. Later, posing for him, Nagatoro teases Senpai on making her look sexy while her friends laughed at his embarrassment. Then the girls started to chat regarding what they planned to do with their clubs or class for the cultural festival, with Nagatoro explaining she would have helped her club in organizing a yakisoba stand as per its 20-year tradition. When she asked Senpai what would be the art club exhibition, he stared into space and began remembering the previous year. Then, after Nagatoro woke him up from his memories, he answered that he would probably make an art display, causing the girls to say it would be boring and that they would give him a hand to fire it up a little. Nagatoro ironically suggested it would be fun to have games in which torturing him or a kitty-themed maid cafe, while Sakura suggested a cross-dressing cafe featuring Senpai dressed like a female maid, which a secretly amused Nagatoro refused, fearing the boy would get too much attention. In that exact moment, Senpai heard some familiar footsteps and asked the girls to hide in the prep room right before the president entered with a stern expression. While the president told Senpai she was disappointed for him inviting people and being rowdy, eavesdropping on their conversation hidden in the prep room, Sakura, Yoshi, and especially Gamo-chan all teased Nagatoro, saying that the beautiful older girl is probably Senpai's ex. Afterwards, the president informed Senpai that she was thinking about disbanding the club, leaving Senpai unable to reply. Nagatoro came out of the prep room with her friends and faced the girl herself, accusing her of being selfish and unreasonable as she was the one who abandoned the club. The president dismissed this accusation, stating that if the only club member lacked motivation, there were no reasons for the club to continue, thus angering Nagatoro, who finally lashed out, making her feelings for Senpai transparent and yelling that even by himself, he was always working really damn hard. Hearing this, the president suggested that Senpai hold his own art display independent from the club, and if he defeated hers in the school's popularity contest, she would have rescinded the club's disbandment. Although Senpai was not very confident about it, Nagatoro immediately accepted the challenge in his stead. After the president left, Nagatoro started to do a mocking impression of her with her friends, prompting Senpai to stop them, saying that they were the ones at fault and that they had zero chances of victory against her. To cheer him up, the four girls all offered to lend him a hand, suggesting to make his display a kitty cosplay art cafe. But Senpai began praising the president's talent, telling them of the many awards she won and that the previous year the art club display ranked 6th in the popularity contest over 50 to 60 exhibits. Hearing this, all four girls realized Senpai has quite a crush for the president, much to Nagatoro's dismay. However, after Gamo-chan asked how it could be that a high schooler's painting ranked that high in a popularity contest, Senpai showed them the president's picture that gathered so much attention, a nude self-portrait. The shocked girls all realized how it could have been that popular, prompting Nagatoro to say that it was a lewd pornographic painting and asking Senpai what was his opinion, getting really mad when he answered he thought it was amazing, explaining the several reasons why he believed it. Gamo-chan told Senpai that all he had to do was paint something equally amazing, to which Nagatoro replied she would have modeled for him, even wearing a swimsuit if he really begged her. Senpai replied that he wasn't confident enough to be able to match the president's talent, while Gamo-chan pointed out that he was already losing in terms of material to work with, referring to the president's massive boobs compared to Nagatoro's petite chest. Nagatoro sulks at Gamo-chan for having dissed her, despite the latter explaining it wasn't her intention since she only meant a big-breasted model usually gathers a bigger crowd. Also, she told her that being a little cute is nothing paragon to a body like the president's. However, Senpai claimed that both Nagatoro and the president are charming in their own way. Heartened again, Nagatoro asked Senpai how he preferred to paint her. However, he told her that he didn't want to use her as his model since if he dragged her into that match and lost, it would be embarrassing for her too. Offended, Nagatoro stormed out of the room, soon followed by her friends, all of whom lightly scolded him for hurting Nagatoro's feelings. The next day, Nagatoro entered the room to visit Senpai and, seeing the president half naked with him, since she was doing another nude self-portrait, Nagatoro runs away deeply saddened. Senpai chases after Nagatoro but was unsure regarding what to tell her and how, so he stays silent. Thus, when a pair of her classmates reached them, she told them that he was a stalker and ran away again. Senpai chased her for the second time, and after they reached an impasse, she climbed a tree in order not to listen to the boy, causing him to yell at her from below, begging her to be his model. Blushing yet remaining mad, Nagatoro told him that he can ask the president to be his model if she rather her, thus getting distracted and falling from the tree right on top of him, since he tried to catch her. Quickly awakening from the impact, Senpai told her that he didn't want to draw the president, but her. Nagatoro, pleased but determined to keep the tough facade, asked him why, and he finally admitted that Nagatoro was the most stimulating person for him. In that moment, the two classmates of Nagatoro's that previously ran into them passed by and, seeing them on top of each other, giggled, making them both embarrassed. Anime time! In the anime, they actually went to the pool, and I think what happened was Nagatoro fell into the pool along with Senpai because Senpai was doing his whole shtick. They got back up and, Nagatoro teased Senpai for being so determined. Over the next few days, Senpai started doing some sketches of Nagatoro, causing her to mock him for how fishy he looked. Senpai answered her that he wanted to try creating a slice-of-life Nagatoro. Later, while Senpai admitted to her that he didn't know what he would do if he lost the match and thus the art club, Nagatoro said she would have felt sorry for him and might have helped him join the swimming club with her, making him slightly blush despite declaring he wouldn't have done it as he has no skills nor interest in said sport. Walking home that afternoon, Nagatoro admitted she didn't understand the sense of his slice-of-life work, to which Senpai answered it's to show how cute she was. Realizing what he just said, the boy blushed as vividly as Nagatoro. Then, to make the tension disappear, she started to tease him over the term he used. After he shows his painting of Nagatoro's slice of life to Yoshi, Sakura, and Gamo-chan, they were all impressed by them, and the latter told him it's like he looked at her as a lover, embarrassing both Nagatoro and Senpai. Then, Gamo-chan suggested to sneak a peek at the president's work, convincing all the gang to do it except for Senpai. However, after seeing it, the girls came back shocked, and Nagatoro fainted. Thus, Gamo-chan and Sakura planned to be cunning as the president and began to make a plan to fight back against her new work. Although Senpai claimed they didn't need to do anything weird as it was a problem between Nagatoro and him, the girls throw him out of the room, telling him they would do their best to ready her up. They then choreographed a dance featuring Nagatoro in her cat costume, together with Yoshi and Sakura wearing mascot costumes. They do the I'll Bully You dance and uploaded it on YouTube, making it the talk of the school, and also selling related straps that became amazingly popular. The day of the cultural festival, the girls entered Senpai's display and Nagatoro performed said dance, prompting people who have seen the video to begin gathering all around the display to be willingly bullied by the so-called Toro cat. A boy complimented the paintings and asked her out, making Senpai jealous. Then, although she seemed not interested as always, under her friend's pressures, she started to act with the boy like she always does with Senpai, causing more and more people to come in order to be treated in the same way. As the hours passed, lots of people also went to see the president's new nude self-portrait. However, Senpai's exhibition seemed to gather more interest. However, after a pair of girls went to compliment Senpai for what an exceptional artist he was, Nagatoro gets visibly jealous. Around noon, Gamo-chan made Senpai and Nagatoro get some food so they can spend more time together. When Nagatoro tries to make an excuse saying that she couldn't just leave the exhibition as she was sulking at Senpai, Gamo-chan replied that Yoshi and Sakura could work harder to fill the void. While going to get food with Senpai, Nagatoro tried to act cool and asked him if he wasn't happy for having girls fawning over him. However, she ultimately couldn't continue the charade, showing how mad she really was for it. To cheer her up, Senpai told her that all the compliments he received were thanks to her for being his model, making her blush, smile again, and sweeten up despite all her attempts to stay mad at him. I don't know if y'all can relate, but it's like, when you're in a relationship and your boyfriend or girlfriend gets mad, and then you need to eat, and it's just like, what do you want to eat? And it's just like, anything. But then you get the right thing, and then they soften up, and it's like, thank you. That used to happen to me a lot. She then asked him to treat her to something to eat if he was really thankful, joking about buying 100 takoyaki and 100 yakisoba to bring them home and freeze them so they'd have them every day. The two shared a meal cheerfully and then returned to the exhibition, discovering that the president's display had been shut down by the student council, as they've given her permission only depending on what they would have seen on the actual day. While the president is escorted away due to her painting being deemed as too immoral for a school by the student council, Nagatoro and Gamo-chan forced her to admit they've won the match, as she would lose due to disqualification, and after exulting with Yoshi and Sakura, in order to further humiliate her, the girls forced the president to wear a skimpy bunny suit and sell their straps all over the school. After getting sold out, the girls allowed her to go, and Nagatoro told her friends she would have taken a little walk around too, although they all cheerfully realized she was actually planning to go to Senpai. Reaching him right at the moment in which the shameless president was about to strip in front of Senpai and prevent her from doing it, prompting her to lie, saying she was just joking despite Nagatoro not believing her at all. Then, looking at Senpai's paintings on Nagatoro, she told him that there was love in it, thus making both Nagatoro and Senpai blush. In that moment, the speaker announced that the live concert would start at 4 p.m. and Nagatoro told Senpai she was there for that, indirectly asking him if he wanted to go with her. He accepted and was immediately dragged to the auditorium. The following day, after they met on the street and Senpai confessed that he didn't know how to approach her and say hello, Nagatoro offered to give him a lecture about how to approach people. However, her various patterns of greeting consisted of painful pats on the back, tripping, pricking, and even kicking until finally, she hugged him from behind. Feeling Nagatoro's boobs against his back and her breath on his neck, Senpai got quite embarrassed, while the girl licked her lips and told him to do the same with her, or she would spread a rumor around the school that she hugged him and he got an erection. Later, while they have a reprised walk quietly, a distracted Senpai stumbled and hugged her, accidentally groping her right breast in the process. Blushing, Nagatoro hit him powerfully and made him fall against Gamo-chan and Yoshi, who were coming from the alley at that very moment, and greeted them normally, proving every form of greeting illustrated by Nagatoro were lies. Sometime later, Nagatoro and her friends invited Senpai to a sushi all-you-can-eat restaurant to have a cultural festival wrap-up party with them, since they sincerely intended to celebrate him and the success they had. After all of her friends offered Senpai special recipes that they composed or improvised, feeling jealous, Nagatoro tried to make her own special dish, overdoing it and taking half of the roe for the tarako gunkan and placing it in half of the milk from the shirako gunkan to create, in her words, a miraculous meeting between and milk that could get someone's stomach pregnant. This shocked the whole gang, prompting even Yoshi to describe it as disgusting. While Nagatoro's friends scolded her for playing with her food like that, feeling bad for her, Senpai decided to try it, finding it surprisingly delicious. Senpai is such a good person. Date at the zoo. A few days after the cultural festival, Nagatoro approached the art club room while the president was exiting it and eavesdropped only her last words, misinterpreting her words as telling Senpai to ejaculate. Suspicious, she peers into the room and, seeing that Senpai has 2 zoo tickets, gets excited and immediately checks on her phone for some advice for a zoo date. Then, feigning indifference, she enters the room and sits on the sofa. After Senpai managed to muster up the courage to ask Nagatoro if she liked animals, Nagatoro eagerly answered positively. He then asks her if she likes to draw, to which she replies that she only did it in class, admitting she was a terrible artist and would like for him to teach her. Finally, he managed to ask her if she wanted to go to the zoo with him the following Sunday, to which Nagatoro accepted. Smiling heartily, that weekend, a dressed-up Nagatoro meets with Senpai at the zoo, and after Senpai gives her a sketchbook, she realizes her misunderstanding, getting her a little upset, implying that she expected something sexy from the date. At the zoo, Nagatoro's attention was absorbed by Kojiro-kun, the red panda, and after he finally stood up, she tried to call Senpai, pouting after noticing he was too absorbed by his sketches to enjoy their date. Senpai immediately apologized, guessing she was getting bored, and told her that she could simply walk around if she preferred it. However, Nagatoro replied that she was fine and would play along with it, asking her to take her hand and teach her everything in return. Despite some initial embarrassment and Nagatoro teasing him all the time, Senpai accepted and, taking Nagatoro by the hand, showed her how to draw the general outline of a subject. The pair spent the afternoon drawing various animals, and although Senpai didn't notice, because Senpai didn't notice her yet, Nagatoro actually looked at him with a sweet expression every now and then. Later, they relaxed at the bar. I don't know if it's really a bar, but they showed each other their sketches, and Nagatoro felt like hers were quite bad. However, Senpai reassured her that they were actually good for a beginner, yet, noticing Senpai's drawings were almost alive, asked him what was the secret, to which he replied that it's simply having an interest or liking what you draw, in order not to say love. Thinking about all the time he drew her, Nagatoro smiled. Then she went to the restroom, leaving him alone for a bit. After she returned, Nagatoro saw Senpai standing up to defend her drawing from a pair of schoolmates who were also there, so she scolded them for criticizing her work and harassing Senpai, making them apologize out of fear and then leaving. Senpai thanked her for saving him, and she jokingly mocked his weakness, thus making him admit that it was really pathetic of him being bailed out by a kohai. However, having actually seen him yell at the two to take her defense, she was deeply impressed, prompting her to smile and reply that it was just about right for him. As it was getting late, Senpai proposed to Nagatoro to draw her favorite animal as their last one. She chose the cage with the sloth, and as they began drawing, she positioned way behind Senpai. Then, after they finished, Nagatoro revealed that she was actually drawing him, a 5-toed sloth, so slothful and weak that it risks extinction, and with such a weak presence that can rarely be noticed. Although annoyed, he noticed it was actually very well drawn and realistic, blushing a little while remembering that the secret of drawing is love. Seeing him staring silently into the void, Nagatoro asked Senpai what he was looking at, and, as he refused to answer, she started to tease him again. Coming of winter. One day during the following week, Nagatoro was chatting in the cafeteria with Senpai and her friends about a group of boys from Class 1A having been suspended for drinking alcohol at the party after the cultural festival. Although Nagatoro criticized those boys for having been stupid and cocky, Senpai can't help but believe they were habitual alcoholic drinkers too. He didn't express those thoughts out loud, but Nagatoro guessed it and scolded him for being rude. Then Nagatoro imagined what Senpai would look like drinking in a not-so-far-off future, resulting in the group's hilarity. To cheer him up, Nagatoro told him she would have brought him to a nice grown-up bar to drink together when they became adults, yet Senpai claimed he didn't plan to drink alcohol ever as he didn't understand what was so fun in staggering around drunk. The following day, Nagatoro transformed the art club room into a bar-like setting and ordered insistently that he made an order, until he told her to give him what she recommended out of annoyance. Nagatoro then made a Bloody Mary, leaving out the vodka. Senpai commented that then it's just tomato juice, to which Nagatoro told him to just drink it, and as he did, he found it really good. Nagatoro sat next to him and told him to enjoy their adult drink, yet after a few sips, she got drunk due to having eaten whiskey bonbon chocolates as snacks, which made him smile, reflecting that maybe, when they grew up, drinking together could be fun. After the weather started to get colder, Nagatoro brought a pair of black tights to keep her legs warm, and after Senpai let out a sigh, commenting that it can't be helped, realizing only afterward that he talked his thoughts out loud. Nagatoro, obviously, asked him to put the tights on in order to prove he's not obsessed with her bare legs. To further embarrass him, Nagatoro asked Senpai to do it smoothly. However, despite this, Senpai managed to ascend from Nagatoro's foot to her calf right up to her thigh, getting closer to her inner thigh, and thus this freaked Nagatoro out, and that was enough to tell her that it was enough, proceeding to put on the rest by herself with the excuse that his hands were way too lewd. After she finished putting on her tights, Nagatoro asked Senpai how she looked, and when he complimented her, she asked if he had a fetish for it. Afterwards, discovering Senpai with the first volume of a shoujo manga she had also read, whose plot mirrored that of their story, she admitted that she felt a connection to the female protagonist and found it hilarious how she reduced the male lead to tears. Yet, when Senpai claimed that what was depicted in the manga was nothing compared to what a certain someone does to him, Nagatoro felt offended and showed him some rows from the following chapters in order to prove she wasn't as mean as the female lead. Senpai remained shocked to see that, in one of the last chapters published online, the heroine forced the male protagonist to lick her loafer after he accidentally spilled some water on it. Nagatoro joked about doing the same if he ever spilled water on hers. However, while she messed around, the water actually spilled on it, causing Senpai to bend down and, as Nagatoro blushed and became nervous over the idea of him actually licking her foot, cleaned it with a handkerchief. Later, walking home on a cold day, they decided to eat ice cream inside a warm place. However, as Senpai got a little aroused for seeing her lick the ice cream, she noticed how he was staring at her. Nagatoro messed with him first, proposing a bite of her cone and then asking him if he was worried about the possible indirect kiss. However, while doing this, she stumbled, and although Senpai managed to catch her before she fell to the ground, in the heat of the gesture, their ice cream toppings come into contact, mixing and thus causing them to sit back and proceed licking their ice creams, very much aware that it was an indirect kiss. During the school-wide marathon, Nagatoro and her friends approached Senpai and proposed him to a race. He tried to refuse, saying he'd rather run at his own pace, but the group tried to persuade him, telling him that it could be like the fable of the tortoise and the hare, thus they won't let their guard down, to which he joked that they're more like cats than hares. Right at that moment, they saw the president run past them, all dressed in her bunny suit, since cosplaying was allowed. Thus, Nagatoro got motivated into beating the hare, and after Senpai wished them good luck as the president was one of the top in their class, Nagatoro reminded him that it was the tortoise who should beat up the hare, thus meaning he was the one who must race her. Although he was skeptical, Nagatoro supported him, saying that they would have poured their power on him, forming a line to push one another in order to boost his speed. However, after arriving at a crosswalk, Nagatoro and Senpai are separated from the other girls due to the traffic light. After Gamo-chan, Yoshi and Sakura told them that they should keep going and would eventually catch up with them, Nagatoro and Senpai proceed, noticing that they're about halfway there. Nagatoro noticed and complimented how much Senpai had trained for the race, though not without mocking his style of running. All of a sudden, Senpai sprained his ankle and explained to a worried Nagatoro that he twisted it the previous day while running, prompting her to take him under her arm in order for him not to be left behind, saying that they would have kept going until they reached the school. Nagatoro compared their situation to a war movie scene when two soldiers get separated from their unit. One of them is wounded and the other refuses to leave him, saying that they would go home together. After a while, noticing exactly how much pain Senpai really is in, she asked him to get on her back. Embarrassed, Senpai told her that she didn't need to feel responsible for his ankle, to which she replied that they'll eventually manage to convince him. Despite feeling a little guilty for riding a girl's back, Senpai described Nagatoro as amazing for managing to carry him with such a small body. Then, however, he noticed that she was actually struggling and asked her to stop, stating that he doesn't want to go on if there's even a possibility that she might get hurt. As Nagatoro blushed, Gamo-chan reached them, complimenting his line, and, together with Yoshi and Sakura, helped carry Senpai in a sort of human cart, quoting that a tortoise might be slow, but if you give it a booster, then it can fly. Racing all together in said formation, they managed to reach the president. However, as she was still faster than them, Gamo-chan told Yoshi to run in front of them using her almost superhuman speed to act as a windbreak and increasing their speed, narrowly managing to beat the president, albeit getting disqualified by the teachers because of their formation. First name arc. Sometime after this, after having taken a nap in the art classroom, Nagatoro received a text from Sakura and went to her friends in order to have a dazzling girl talk. However, while exiting the room, she accidentally forgot her smartphone. Nagatoro bought a tomato juice along the way and reached Sakura and her two classmates and started to talk about one of them having recently started dating someone in the baseball club. The conversation quickly switches over to what type of boys each of them are into, and when they urged the reluctant Nagatoro to answer said question, she answered that her type of boy is simply someone who's fun to be with. Then Nagatoro noticed her smartphone was missing, and Sakura suggested she probably left it in the club room, causing her classmates to ask if the reason she went there so much lately was because of a boy. Both Nagatoro and Senpai, who had previously hid inside the closet, blushed, and the latter panicked, causing a noise that got Nagatoro's attention. When Nagatoro went to open the closet, she found Senpai inside, and despite at first visibly mad at him, Nagatoro made an excuse to distract Sakura and her classmates, dragging Senpai out of her class. Despite mocking him for how creepy he was hiding in the closet, she sweetly thanked him for bringing her smartphone, and then asked if he heard what she said. Ashamed, Senpai replied he had no idea what she was talking about, and ran off, leaving her red-faced, meaning she knows exactly what he heard. The following day, Nagatoro got a flu, and despite recovering quickly, she had to take a leave from school for 2 days. While at home, she asked her sister to get her a pudding, then went to sleep and, after awakening, entered the kitchen yawning with messy hair and a comfy PJ, blushing in embarrassment after discovering that Senpai was there to visit her. Embarrassed, Nagatoro immediately went to dress and do her hair, scolding Senpai for not having called nor warned her before coming to her house, to which he replied that he sent her a text, although she yelled back at him that she was sleeping. Then, Nagatoro's sister, best sister, prepared her a special Marlowe pudding with fruit and cream to calm her down, saying that they should all sit and chat a little. However, feeling ashamed, Nagatoro asked Senpai to come to her room and forbid her sister from entering. While in her room, Nagatoro blushed a little and thanked Senpai for coming to visit her, to which the embarrassed boy replied he simply wanted to bring her printout. Then they started eating pudding, and at some point, Nagatoro teased him by offering to feed him. Due to being alone with her, Senpai decided to play along with it and opened his mouth, but at that very moment, Nagatoro's sister entered and caught them in a said compromising position, commenting Senpai does indeed seem interested in every little detail of her little sister. Blushing vividly, Nagatoro sent her sister out of her room and then asked Senpai what she meant by her sister's last sentence. After Nagatoro's sister's statement, an awkward silence descended on Senpai and Nagatoro, prompting Senpai to try to leave right after finishing his pudding. However, Nagatoro prevented him from doing it, asking him to play a match of the video game with her, like they did the last time he went to her home. While playing the game, Senpai noticed that Nagatoro has probably been practicing since she's gotten a little better. Then Nagatoro asked him what he talked about with her sister, worried that he asked her about her secrets while she was sleeping. However, he quickly reassured that he wouldn't have poked his nose into someone else's business without asking. Hearing this, after winning a match, Nagatoro offered to reveal to him one of her secrets of his choice if he managed to defeat her. At first, Senpai pretended not to be interested, slightly offending Nagatoro. Then he accepted said offer, saying he was simply taking her up on that. After the match started, Nagatoro playfully teased him, asking if the secret he wanted to know was her measurements or something even lewder, to which Senpai replied he would have liked to know her first name, leaving her speechless. A bit embarrassed after realizing she never told her name to Senpai, Nagatoro blushed but then tried to act nonchalantly, saying that she didn't mind telling it to him, but provocatively asked him why he wanted to know. Senpai lied, telling her that it was simply because it would be easier to call her, to which she replied that how he called her didn't really matter. However, while they were talking, the game's time ran out, resulting in Nagatoro's loss. Nagatoro played it coolly, despite being visibly happy of the circumstances, and, using the previous bet as an excuse, got ready to tell her name to Senpai. However, Senpai stopped her at the last minute, saying that he didn't want to know her name due to having won a game, but rather after finding the courage to ask her directly. Both Nagatoro and Senpai blushed, and agreed on waiting for that day to come. Right at that moment, Nagatoro's sister stormed into the room calling her Hayase, and bringing the photo album of her primary school years in order to show it to Senpai. Regardless of Nagatoro yelling at her to get out of her room, her sister continued to show embarrassing pictures of little Hayase to Senpai. That evening, after having said goodbye to one another, Nagatoro told Senpai that she would be back to school the following day and suggested he prepare himself, causing Senpai to smile heartily. The following morning, Senpai and Nagatoro met while walking to school. At first, it's awkward for both of them. Then Nagatoro starts pulling him by the sleeve, showing on her smartphone that what she was doing was first place on the ranking of moves girls can do to instantly excite men. Senpai stated that it didn't exactly excite him at all, prompting Nagatoro to sulk and try repeatedly. Annoyed, Senpai decided to grab Nagatoro's sleeve to prevent her from doing it constantly, but he didn't get the timing right, which meant that he ended up grabbing her hand instead. Right at that moment, Gamo-chan, Yoshi, and Sakura appeared, commenting on how bold they were for holding hands in public. Embarrassed, Nagatoro quickly tried to deny that they were holding hands, saying to her friends that she was merely trying a judo move on him without sounding believable to anyone. A few days later, since she didn't find him in the art club, Nagatoro called Senpai wondering why he wasn't there. And after discovering he caught the flu and was all by himself at home due to his parents' jobs, she felt deeply sorry for him, especially knowing that she was the one who spread it to him. Thus, she wrung his address out of the president, reached his home, and, despite firmly denying being worried for him, became very protective, putting him on the bed, taking his temperature using her own forehead, and placing a wet blanket over his head, and staying by his side, nursing him the whole afternoon, even calling her family to inform them that she would be home at a later time due to wanting to watch over Senpai. After Senpai's mother texted him that she wouldn't make it home until very late in the evening, Nagatoro cooked Senpai some porridge and fed it directly to him, causing Senpai to start to hallucinate about being married to Nagatoro, whom, caught in the euphoria, he thanked for assisting him, calling her Hayase, which left her utterly shocked and deep down very pleased, thus leading her to try to get rid of her own discomfort by teasing Senpai and daring him to repeat it. However, since he was still too dazed to react in any manner and fell asleep, Nagatoro simply watched over him, asking again to repeat her name, even going so far as to ask him, please. Sweetened by the situation, she asked the sleeping boy if it would be okay with him to kiss him, and, taking his obvious silence as a yes, leaned forward to do it. Right at that moment, Senpai's mother came back home. Embarrassed, Nagatoro ran out of Senpai's room and ran into his mother in the living room, being too nervous to say anything. Nagatoro left Senpai's house with minimal explanation without even introducing herself and asking forgiveness for her intrusion. The following morning, when Senpai and Nagatoro met on their way to school, there was a moment of mutual embarrassment. Then Senpai thanked her for what she did, and Nagatoro replied it was nothing since he did the same for her. Right before she started to kick him as punishment for having been so cocky, referencing having called her by her given name. Christmas. A few days later, while she was hanging out in the art club room, Senpai asked her to be his model. At first, Nagatoro pretended to be busy in order to be begged to, but in the end she accepted and asked him what pose he wanted her to take, leading him to tell her to assume the one in which she felt more natural. Hearing this, Nagatoro assumed a series of stances from Muay Thai, boxing, capoeira, and a fourth one that she assumed without thinking, but seemingly made her uncomfortable. After seeing the latter, Senpai deemed it was the one on which she was most natural, and asked her to pose in that stance, which Nagatoro eventually accepted, blushing a little. While the painting was being done, Senpai and Nagatoro exchanged several glances, first asking himself what kind of stance that was, while the latter stared at him with sweetness. After finishing it, Senpai asked Nagatoro about the stance, leading the embarrassed girl to choke him in a submission move, stating it was her own personal martial arts style in a clear attempt not to answer him. Right in that moment, Yoshi, Sakura, and Gamo-chan entered the room, and while the first two simply told Senpai to surrender in order to get freed from Nagatoro's move, saw the painting, which Gamo-chan got quite emotional to, saying heartwarmingly to Nagatoro that it's been a while since the last time, and asking with evident nostalgia if she wanted to give it another try. Senpai asked what they were talking about, but Nagatoro stormed out of the room saying she wouldn't tell him. That afternoon, while going back home, Senpai noticed that Nagatoro seemed a little down, and she confirmed that the cold, windy winter days disturbed her heart. Noticing and seeing that Nagatoro was depressed made him feel weird too, he found the courage to invite her to a restaurant specializing in wagyu and croquette to treat her to a meal. Nagatoro simply took a special croquette which she described as super juicy, and while walking home, in order to tease Senpai as well as prove to him it was better than the regular one he took, dared him to take a bite from hers. Senpai ultimately chose to simply grab a piece with his fingers and ate it, resulting in Nagatoro making fun of him anyway, telling him that, differently from that time in which they took ice cream together, it wouldn't have been an indirect kiss. Then she took a bite from his croquette nonchalantly. Later, while almost home, Senpai finally asked her if there was something that worried her, prompting Nagatoro to admit she was feeling a little down due to not knowing what to write for her future planned survey form, so she was planning to leave it blank, resulting in Senpai telling her it won't be good. Christmas Eve, right after the principal's speech to the students, they all get ready to come back home, and Nagatoro approached Senpai, asking him if he would have been alone on Christmas. However, Nagatoro's friends interrupted them and dragged them both into the library, where an argument had ensued. Gamo-chan was planning to invite everyone to karaoke and is upset because Sakura and Rabi-chan had other plans with boys, thus leaving only Yoshi and Nekoba to join her. As a fight ensued between the girls with boys and the girls without boys, they started bickering. Senpai noticed that Nagatoro had a present in her bag, and in turn she noticed Senpai had one too, leading them to exchange an embarrassing glance. After a few minutes, Gamo-chan asked Nagatoro if she would have come to karaoke, leading Nekoba to ask her if she and Senpai were dating or not, which caused both of them to blush. Out of embarrassment, Nagatoro quickly denied it, saying she simply liked to toy with Senpai. Thus, Gamo-chan told both her and Senpai to join them at karaoke. However, the latter refused, making up an excuse to remain alone with Nagatoro and saying that he forgot something in the art club room. Understanding what he was doing, Nagatoro seized the opportunity and quickly joined him, copying his excuse and dragging him out of the room, saying she would have met with the gang later. Once they arrive in the art club room, Senpai and Nagatoro pretend to take some objects to fuel their mutual lie while trying to find the right words to exchange their respective gifts. However, before they can do it, the president entered the room completely naked as she wanted to feel its atmosphere on her skin, being her last time in it before graduation. Angered, Nagatoro called her a horny bunny and told her to graduate already. Then the president asked if they were on a tryst, causing both of them to blush and storm out of the room right as the school's broadcast informed the students to leave the institute as quickly as possible. In order not to be caught by Professor Yamaguchi, who's very strict about the rules, the duo hid in the nurse's office. Once again, they tried to exchange their gifts, but at the last minute freaked out due to hearing Sakura making out with her date on one of the beds. Having managed to sneak away, remaining unnoticed by the two lovers, Senpai and Nagatoro went to the rooftop hoping to get some privacy, only to find dozens of other couples on it watching the sunset. Downcast by all those setbacks, the two decide to simply go home. However, after seeing Nagatoro shiver, Senpai found the courage to give her his Christmas gift, which is revealed to be a muffler. Overjoyed, Nagatoro gave him her own gift in return, a scarf. Later, while they walked back home, Nagatoro jumped happily and joked about the fact that they got the same gift for each other. New Year. On New Year's Eve, Nagatoro called Senpai and manipulated him into visiting the Ishido Shrine the following day. Once he visited said place, Nagatoro revealed that she picked up a part-time job there as a miko due to a desire to wear their traditional hakama and kosude. Sulking due to not receiving compliments for her look from Senpai, she started to insult him as always, getting scolded by him from saying certain things while dressed in such sacred attire. Then Nagatoro accompanied him to wash his hand and rinse his mouth in order to purify his body as per right, before taking him to take an omikuji and bragging about hers. After realizing she did all of that just to show off, since her fortune slip read Great Fortune, Senpai discovered that it read Misfortune. Then more visitors came to the shrine, prompting Senpai to leave in order not to be in between the slightly disappointed girl's job. Later, Nagatoro complained to a colleague that life never went the way someone wanted. Just at that moment, Senpai appeared, asked her for an amulet, and managed to say that he would have waited for her at the end of her shift. Although she made fun of Senpai, calling him a stalker, Nagatoro was overjoyed and reached for him after 20 minutes, asking him what he planned to do. Senpai managed to say that he wished to visit the shrine with her, realizing right at that moment that the place was a matchmaking shrine. Promptly, Nagatoro began teasing him that he hoped the two of them would have made a good couple, leading Senpai to deny it out of embarrassment and reply that if he would have just hypothetically wished to ask her out one day, he shouldn't need to pray to a god, but rather work on himself. Moved, Nagatoro wished for him to work hard at it. Then they went praying at the shrine together. While leaving the place together, Nagatoro asked Senpai what he wished for, to which he answered his family's health, leading Nagatoro to reply that her wish was to become his bride, right before adding she was just kidding. Come on, Senpai, you know that's a friggin' tease. A few days later, Nagatoro entered the club room, saw a box of contact lenses on the table, and teased a mortified Senpai, asking if he intended to change his four eyes look in order to look hot. After Senpai replied that he simply wanted to give contact lenses a try, Nagatoro dared him to wear them right at that moment, prompting him to admit that he was too scared to put them in his eyes. Due to having previously helped her brother put his, Nagatoro offered to help Senpai put the lenses on, albeit a little skeptical at first. Senpai eventually accepted and sat by her side while Nagatoro crawled on his lap to place the lenses on his eyes. Nevertheless, to Senpai's embarrassment, Nagatoro put both lenses in, and after he asked her how he looked, the latter replied that he was fine, but without his glasses couldn't do his trick. Then she put on Senpai's glasses and mimicked his signature gesture of adjusting them by the bridge, when embarrassed. Seeing Nagatoro with his glasses, Senpai blushed, causing Nagatoro to ask him if he thought that she looked cute in glasses. To which Senpai tried to do the trick, but couldn't because he didn't have glasses. Anyway, somewhat later, during a ski trip with their school, Senpai and his classmates remained impressed by Nagatoro, Gamo-chan, Yoshi, and Sakura's talents as they managed effortlessly to ski down the pro course, leading Senpai to daydream about skiing together with her down that slope. After she spotted him in the crowd, Nagatoro invited Senpai to ski with her, leading two of his classmates to assume they were dating. Due to Senpai's clumsiness, Nagatoro offered to give him some training. However, he didn't manage to learn anything, which resulted in him getting sad about weighing her down. That night, at the hotel, Senpai and his classmates saw Nagatoro and Sakura in the night skiing group. Once again, she invited him to ski with her. However, he refused, saying he was tired, to which Nagatoro simply walked away, telling him to train a bit more. Judo Tournament. Sometime later, with the school year nearing its end, she observed from a window in the corridor Senpai performing poorly during a judo class in the school gym. However, she quickly escaped when Senpai's teacher began distributing flyers about the school's judo tournament to all of his students. After having been told by Gamo-chan to visit her family's gym that Saturday, Senpai went there while the former was boxing with Nagatoro, thus distracting her and leading her to being knocked out with a single punch. Embarrassed, Nagatoro accused him of having followed her there, calling him a stalker, only to be scolded by Gamo-chan not to rough up her customers, thus prompting Nagatoro to reply she invited him only to prank her. Later, Senpai told Nagatoro that he performed badly at the school's last judo tournament, thus asking her to teach him judo. Nagatoro blushed vividly, and then sweetened up, shyly accepting his offer. After the two changed into judo-gi, and have done a little ukemi, I hope I'm pronouncing those right, Gamo-chan went to her lunch break with the other trainers, leaving the pair alone and leading Nagatoro to propose randori to a frightened Senpai. Then Nagatoro quickly overpowered Senpai, pinning him to the ground, where he found himself unable to get free from her grip and is forced to surrender to her, calling her too heavy for him to move, thus offending Nagatoro, who angrily explained that even a light little girl like her could pin someone to the ground by controlling her own center of gravity. Later, Nagatoro had a second match with Gamo-chan while Senpai watched. Afterwards, while walking back home together, Senpai finally asked Nagatoro if she did judo, to which she replied that she used to practice it in the past, but stopped as she realized that there are people who she simply couldn't beat. Seeing her so sad after parting goodbye, Senpai yelled to Nagatoro that he thought her moves were really beautiful, leading her to blush and smile at the same time before quickly running off. A few days later, the school's judo tournament began, and while Senpai and his classmates watched, Nagatoro won her first round against a girl named Yamashita, while Gamo-chan faced Olympic judo team candidate Orihara, being effortlessly overpowered. Afterward, Nagatoro commented with her friend that Nagatoro would have to face Orihara in the following round, referencing their past together. Despite Orihara being friendly and telling Nagatoro she hoped to have another exciting match with her, the latter leaves the judo hall disconsolate and is joined by Senpai, who tries to comfort her. This prompts Nagatoro to explain to him what happened between her and Orihara in the past, concluding that she didn't even feel like it was worth fighting anymore. Hearing that, Senpai scolded Nagatoro, telling her that this behavior doesn't feel like her, thus upsetting her and leading her to tell him not to talk to her as if he knew her, to which he replied, quoting what Nagatoro herself once told him about not knowing what would happen until trying, pointing out that even if her adversary is an Olympic candidate, Nagatoro herself was quite strong. Blushing, Nagatoro told him that she would give it a try if he won at least one match, also teasing Senpai that in that case, she would also have kissed him. Later during his match, while cheered by both of his classmates, Sakura, Gamo-chan, and Yoshi, Senpai managed to remember the stuff Nagatoro had taught him, putting up a good fight and eventually leading Nagatoro to gleefully cheer for him, out of pure joy, which surprised both Senpai, her friends, and even Nagatoro herself. Eventually, Senpai loses his match by points, but is complimented by both his opponent and his classmates. Thus, despite his defeat, Nagatoro decided to keep her promise anyway and fight against Orihara. Although the two girls were equal in terms of skill, Orihara was picked as favorite, and thus everyone in the hall except for Nagatoro's friends started to cheer for her, which led Senpai to cheer for Nagatoro as she previously did for him. Despite blushing for it, Nagatoro was quite pleased and gained enough confidence to slam Orihara on the floor, getting a waza-ari. But eventually she lost by points just like Senpai. The match, however, restored Nagatoro's passion for judo, leading her to shaking Orihara's hand after losing and promising her that she would definitely get her next time. Walking home with Senpai, Nagatoro thought about it and asked Senpai to give her a kiss as a prize when she would have managed to defeat Orihara, causing Senpai to blush, telling her not to tease him, to which she replied she wasn't, just a moment before running home with a smile on her face. What a freaking tease. Second year of high school. After the new school year officially begins, Nagatoro joins the judo club alongside Gamo-chan and then storms into the art club room, which Senpai has taken over, exposing a poster to recruit new members, wall painting in order to calm down since he was trying to downplay what she told him about wanting to have a kiss from him as a mere joke. Nagatoro compliments him for being a third year and asks if he still wants her to be his model. Senpai quickly accepts, and thus Nagatoro changes into her swimsuit, explaining that she hid it in the prep room in order to always be ready for a sketch. Senpai started to draw Nagatoro despite the latter's constant teasing on how red he was and gawking at her. During their first 10-minute break from drawing, Nagatoro sweetly revealed to Senpai that she finally joined the judo club since she really wanted to receive a kiss from him. Seeing Senpai's embarrassed reaction, she got frustrated and eventually asking him directly if he wanted to kiss her or not. Before Senpai could answer the question, however, a new girl very similar to the former president entered the room, acting as if she knew Senpai, calling him Hachioji Senpai, and saying she wanted to join the art club. I think this is the first time I've heard Senpai's name. It's so funny. Anyway, after having introduced Tsunomiya and Nagatoro to one another, Nagatoro gets unnerved both due to the Kohai's huge respect for Senpai and to be introduced only by her surname, grade, and sometimes harsh manners, while Tsunomiya, having heard the word kiss while in the hallway and seeing how they interacted with one another, asked if they were dating, which Senpai quickly denied, much to Nagatoro's chagrin. Then Senpai explained to Tsunomiya that sometimes Nagatoro modeled for him the previous year, but now she won't have that much time as she has club activities. Hearing this, Tsunomiya realized that the club doesn't have any other members, and thus she and Senpai would be alone in the club room. Despite Nagatoro trying to change Tsunomiya's mind from joining the club, telling her she would have caught Senpai's wriggly motions, Tsunomiya stated to be able to find beauty into all eccentric things. Right at that moment, Gamo-chan entered the room to tell Nagatoro to go to judo practice with her, and seeing Nagatoro saddened, teased her, asking Senpai if he was switching girls. Embarrassed, Senpai explained to her that he and Nagatoro were simply trying their best separately. Then Tsunomiya reassured Nagatoro to leave Senpai in her care and stripped down, saying she was ready to pose for him in the nude rather than a simple swimsuit. Outraged, Nagatoro told Tsunomiya to put her clothes on again, commenting that she's just like the former president, to which Senpai pointed out that she's actually the president's cousin. Later, after performing badly at practice, Nagatoro and Gamo-chan chatted about how rusty they are due to not practicing properly for years. Nagatoro is soon joined by Orihara, who told Gamo-chan not to worry that much, as she needs the time while still being a white belt. However, she also pointed out that Nagatoro seemed distracted and asked her if something's wrong. Gamo-chan immediately told Orihara that Nagatoro was worried her boyfriend might be stolen by a rival, now that she was busy with club practice and can't hang out at the art club room as much as before. Nagatoro was visibly embarrassed by the chat between her best friend and her rival. However, despite firmly denying Senpai in question being her boyfriend, when Orihara suggested she choose between love and judo, she indirectly stated she would have both.
Hey all, this is Jacob taking over for Adrian because this is an updated video and we got more to tell. So let's take it from the first date arc. That evening, after finishing practice, Nagatoro found Senpai outside the judo hall and asked if he was waiting for her, which the boy denied despite evidently doing it. Later, as they were walking home together, Nagatoro asked him if he felt alone without her around and admitted that she wished there was a place in which they could have been together outside the club room. Hearing this, Senpai found the courage to ask her out on her day off, leaving Nagatoro speechless. When she asked Senpai what he meant and he replied it was only meant as a question, she started to tease him by suggesting impossible places such as Mount Everest, the African savanna, Antarctica, the jungle, or space. Discouraged, Senpai told her to forget about his question, leading the girl to say that even something closer might be good, pointing out that he should be the one to figure out where. Puzzled, the boy suggested the cinema, which Nagatoro described as not bad, but a bit too normal. Then, realizing how much she enjoys places related to animals, Senpai clumsily followed said pattern, suggesting at first the racetrack and then dogfighting. After they came to the fork to get ready to part ways to their respective houses, feeling down for not having managed to invite the girl, Senpai got a last-minute idea and called Nagatoro back, asking her out on a date to the aquarium on the day off, which Nagatoro happily accepted. The morning after, an overjoyed Nagatoro slightly annoyed her friends with her behavior, going so far as to force Yoshi to sing a song with her. Then, after Gamo-chan suggested to visit Senpai due to having finished club practice earlier than usual, Nagatoro refused, causing Gamo-chan to panic and realize she was leaving the best for last. The following day, as Nagatoro and Senpai met at the aquarium for their date, Gamo-chan, Yoshi, Tsunomiya, and her cousin all followed them, the first two to protect Senpai's virginity, while the latter pair to protect his romance. After boarding a train to go to the aquarium, Nagatoro noticed how nervous Senpai was and thus told him that this was just practice for him if he ever went on a real date, and that she would have graded everything he would have done. Later, the pair saw the sharks, jellyfish, crabs, penguins, and took a selfie together. However, after seeing all the other couples holding hands, Nagatoro started to ask Senpai if there wasn't something he should have done. While thinking, Senpai noticed Gamo-chan, Yoshi, and the Tsunomiya cousins, so he took Nagatoro by the hand to drag her away, making the girl both blush and smile. After managing to escape their pursuers, Senpai went to see the dolphins show with Nagatoro, shielding the latter from a splash of water. During the rest of their date, the girl teased him for all the minus points he had gotten. Then, while watching the sunset at the beach, she told him that he got 300 minus points. However, due to grabbing her hand and shielding her from the splash, he then got 350 points, getting a final score of 50. Nagatoro joyfully told Senpai that she would love to tag along again with him on a practice date. Hearing this, Senpai asked her if this was practice for her as well, to which Nagatoro replied that, for her, it was a real date the whole time. After this, Senpai told Nagatoro that he didn't consider their date mere practice either, leading to the girl suggesting he do something more worthy of an actual date, giving him two options, hugging or kissing. Out of embarrassment, the boy chose hugging. However, before they could even touch one another, Gamo-chan and Yoshi stormed the scene, followed by the angered Tsunomiya cousins, thus ruining the moment. Despite all four of the intruders telling them to continue like they weren't there, out of shame, Nagatoro lied, saying that she was merely practicing a judo move on Senpai. Out of anger for having gotten in the way of her date, Nagatoro sulked at both Gamo-chan and Yoshi, starting to ignore them both at school. However, Sakura acts as the peacemaker, explaining that the two girls didn't mean anything bad with their actions and merely felt lonely as Nagatoro spent less and less time with them. Sweetened, Nagatoro forgave her friends, and the four of them went to have lunch in the art club room. There, they discovered that Tsunomiya was feeding Senpai a bento that she made by herself as a way to apologize for what happened on the date. Upon hearing Tsunomiya's plan to make a bento for Senpai the whole week, Nagatoro got jealous and offered Senpai to prepare a bento for him the following day. However, the boy refused, stating that she would have morning training the following day and it would be too much trouble if she should have spent the evening cooking for him. Disheartened, Nagatoro agreed, while all of the girls watched Senpai coolly due to having made a mess again. Then Gamo-chan convinced him not to be stubborn and accept Nagatoro's offer. Hearing this, Senpai told Nagatoro that he would love to have her bento if she accepts to have one from him, which she joyfully does. The following morning, Nagatoro woke up early in order to make a bento for Senpai and had a video call with Gamo-chan. Yoshi and Sakura tell him that she planned to prepare a special tonkatsu with spicy curry in order to surprise him, however she accidentally burned it and thus got very upset. Right at that moment, her older sister walked in, getting happily greeted by her friends despite the girl being slightly embarrassed, and suggested her to make salmon-filled onigiri instead, stating that they're the base of every bento. Saddened by said suggestion, Nagatoro protested, saying it would be too banal and won't surprise him, yet she was convinced when her sister told her it would make her feel better to see him happy rather than surprised. After exchanging bento, both Senpai and Nagatoro are surprised by how good they are. The girl enjoyed especially a karaage with lemon sauce that the boy admitted to have cooked, thinking how much training could exhaust her, as lemon is good to reduce fatigue, while Senpai praised it for how normal it was, since he expected something weird as always, and especially enjoyed the onigiri, thus making the girl as happy as her sister had expected. After finishing eating, Nagatoro and Senpai agreed to make bento to one another every day by taking turns, and the girl joked that it'll make them seem like a newlywed couple. Trouble at the Judo Club arc. The following day, Nagatoro made bento for Senpai and herself as agreed, and they ate it together. Then, the boy asked her if she wanted something particular for the day after, since it would be his turn to cook, leading Nagatoro to tease him, saying that she would have loved to have eaten something to increase her stamina, making fun of him after he wrongly guessed that she meant something lewd rather than her club activity. After this, the girl went out of the room, saying she would have been busy after club, as her brother asked her to help him choose some clothes to buy, and thus they would have seen each other directly the following day. Later that day, walking home from school, Senpai saw Nagatoro talking to her brother and panicked, thinking the guy to be her ex. However, he decides to approach them, greeting them both casually and waiting for Nagatoro's reaction to decide whether to start a conversation or run off. The girl greeted him happily, and Senpai stopped to talk with them. Before she could introduce him to Senpai, her brother stopped her and began to inquire the boy about his relationship with her. Senpai, not knowing how to describe it, stated the girl was his junior at school, prompting Ichiro to further ask him how much he knew about her, implying that he's aware of her sleeping posture and saw it several times, which led Senpai to convince himself that the boy was her ex. Angered and embarrassed, Nagatoro attacked her brother, who demonstrated to be the superior fighter and told her not to forget that he taught her how to fight. Shocked at the development, Senpai jumped in between them, ordering him not to put Nagatoro in any more danger. Despite not knowing much about her, he knew what made her happy and sad. Pleased, Ichiro complimented Senpai and then left the scene, stating that it would have been gross to see his little sister acting all flirty. Later, walking back home, Nagatoro guessed that Senpai was jealous due to believing her brother to be her ex-boyfriend and began teasing him. A few days later, during one of their usual lunches together, Nagatoro admitted to Senpai that she actually thought having late practice every night to be hard, but also fun, since she aimed at receiving a kiss from him after defeating Orihara, making the boy blush. Later that evening, Nagatoro got challenged to a match by Shiki, who has a grudge with her for having left the sport and considered her to be a quitter who half-assed her life. During the match, Shiki eventually hurt Nagatoro's right arm while Senpai was watching. Both Gamo-chan and Orihara got worried due to Nagatoro having injured her wrist in the match. However, she dismissed it as nothing serious, while Shiki mocked her for saying that getting injured so easily meant she didn't even try. Angered by this, Senpai stormed into the room and confronted Shiki, pleasantly surprising Gamo-chan, Orihara, and Nagatoro herself, telling her that what she had said was wrong due to Nagatoro actually trying very hard every day, to which the girl got surprisingly meeker and shy. Seeing their friend in trouble, the other two girls of Shiki's group accused Senpai of being a stalker and spying on them. However, Nagatoro intervened, saying that the boy always waited for her when she had judo practice. Later, the girl let herself be taken to the infirmary and discovered that her wrist was broken and would have needed 2 weeks in order to fully recover, because Nagatoro apparently has the healing factor of Wolverine. The following morning, while walking to school together, Senpai apologized to Nagatoro for having intervened, but she instead thanked him, saying he acted kinda like a boyfriend. Then, just as the boy replied that he hoped Shiki's group won't take revenge on Nagatoro, the trio appeared before them to apologize. Shower arc. What is this? Why is it called the shower arc? I don't know what to expect here. Being unable to go to judo practice due to her broken wrist, Nagatoro spent the Saturday in the art club with Senpai and later decided to have basic training, albeit sad to do it alone, which prompted the boy to join her and have a run around the city together, passing in front of the judo hall to greet Orihara and Gamo-chan. After coming back to school, feeling cold due to the sweat, Nagatoro proposed Senpai to have a quick shower in her club's new shower room. There, the two showered together, with quotation marks because they were separated from the thin wall that divided the boys from the girls section, and had a heart-to-heart chat in which Senpai praised Nagatoro for how positively she faced her injury, leading her to admit that she can only do it because he was there to cheer for her. Right at that moment, the boy heard some voices, and Shiki and her friends entered the shower room. It then clicked that after the place was renewed, the position of the male and female's rooms were swapped. Overhearing this, Senpai and Nagatoro realized they were in the wrong rooms. However, despite at first Senpai planning to stay hidden and sneak out after the trio left, Fujiman quickly detected a boy scent and angrily started looking for him with the other girl, while Shiki managed to hear Nagatoro's voice and, thinking she was having a shower where Senpai was hidden, approached said box in order to ask about her well-being and, opening it, found him. Understanding the situation quickly, Shiki covered for the boy and offered to help him sneak outside by covering him with her body. However, feeling bad at the idea of being this close to a girl while both half naked, Senpai politely refused, prompting Shiki to promise that she would have therefore hurried herself and her friends out of the shower in order to be even with Nagatoro, but right at that moment, more girls entered the shower room, forcing Shiki to enter the box with Senpai in order to keep him hidden and even open the shower head, thus starting to shower to avoid suspicion. Panicking, Nagatoro tried to reach for him, but being in the boys section as two guys entered the shower room, she remained stuck as well. Thus, she overheard Shiki opening up about her feelings with Senpai and confessing her admiration for his bravery, and indirectly that deep down she missed the old Nagatoro. The girl was quite moved from hearing this, but the moment was ruined when Senpai noticed that due to the cramped space, Shiki's ass was rubbing against his. Being unable to move back without opening the front door, the girl decided to turn to the other side, ended up touching the boy's back with her chest. Out of herself from the jealousy, Nagatoro jumped in the gap dividing the male and female shower boxes, squished herself into it, and reached the other side, impressing Shiki with the flexibility she remembered and landing right in Senpai's arms after losing her grip. Later, Shiki exited the showers, joining her friends and advising the pair to wait a few more minutes before getting out of the showers. Meanwhile, Nagatoro teased Senpai for having felt up her naked body. Okay, that wasn't so lewd. I mean, it was, but it wasn't as ludicrous as what I was expecting, I guess. Field trip arc. After talking with Senpai and discovering that their field trip in Kyoto would have been together with the third years, with him being appointed as the group leader, Nagatoro informed her friends about it and started to hope to be in the same group, albeit lying that she was only interested in bullying Senpai during the trip. Then Sakura told him that every second-year student would have been free to choose which group to join. Due to Senpai's plan being boring and revolving around visiting Buddhist art locations, Nagatoro was the first one to sign up, followed by Gamo-chan, Yoshi, and Sakura out of sympathy for the boy, and much to the joy of the only other applicants, his two male friends. However, after joining it, they also started to change the program radically. Nagatoro added a trip to Kyoto's aquarium, Gamo-chan added a visit to the Shinsengumi base, Sakura an excursion to Toei Kyoto Studio Park, and finally Yoshi a jaunt to Nara in order to feed deer. Senpai tried to convince the girls that there wouldn't be enough time for everything they wanted to do in the field trip schedule, so they asked him to remove some of the Buddhist temples from the program, prompting the boy to oppose the idea and tried to explain the beauty of each statue. Despite being impressed by his passion, the girls confessed that they weren't interested in the statues, prompting Takao, one of Senpai's friends, to suggest splitting the group so everyone would be happy. Albeit a bit saddened, Senpai agreed to said proposal, causing Nagatoro to get angry and storm out of the room. Later that night, Nagatoro had a video call with her friends but was gloomy due to what happened, although Yoshi and Sakura tried to cheer her up and Gamo-chan told her not to pout due to this being her first and last opportunity to have a field trip with Senpai, prompting the girl to admit that she felt confused about what to do. Then she received a message from the boy asking her to meet him outside of her house, where he gave her a new program he had made with Tsunomiya's help, managing to decrease the amount of locations to visit and have the afternoon of the second day as free time. Thus, he asked the girl if she wanted to go visit Kyoto's aquarium with him, which she accepted right before offering to help him visit everyone's house to distribute the new program. During the train trip to Kyoto, Nagatoro took pictures of Mount Fuji and has a commemorative photo with the rest of the group. Then, due to being a little excited, she as well as the rest of the girls got bribed by Senpai, who promised to increase the amount of free time the following day if they behaved themselves. Later, she enjoyed a trip to the streets of the city, had lunch at the same table as Senpai, Gamo-chan, and Yoshi, and visited a temple and then went back to her hotel to take a bath. Later, she met Senpai in front of a vending machine and reassured him that everyone was having a great time. After going back to the girls' room, Nagatoro, Gamo-chan, and Yoshi suggested having a pillow fight, you know, like how girls do. However, Sakura, Rabi-chan, and Nekoba told them that being all grown women, they should all have girl talk instead. You know, like how girls do. After Gamo-chan mixed the romance gossip session into a pillow fight to make everyone happy, the girls started to chat and Nagatoro listened about Sakura's double fling, Rabi-chan still being deeply in love with her boyfriend, Nekoba dating a former middle school classmate, and Gamo-chan denying having a crush on her older brother, thus mocking her by asking if she was trying to become her older sister. Out of embarrassment, Gamo-chan threw Nagatoro under the bus, asking her to tell them about her and Senpai, thus prompting the girl to eventually admit that Senpai promised to kiss her if she'll defeat Orihara. After this, Gamo-chan admitted that she'd love to see some progress between them, and Nagatoro promptly said that she already has a plan. Later that night, before going to sleep, Nagatoro sent a message to Senpai asking him if he was ready to have his free time with her, to which he answered that he was looking forward to it. During the free activity day, the group split. Nagatoro and Senpai went to the aquarium to see the penguins and enjoy their day together before venturing to Kiyomizu-dera, prompting Senpai to admit it was something pretty tame that he didn't expect from Nagatoro. However, the girl warned him to not be so sure, and much to his embarrassment, forced him to rent a kimono with her before dragging him to Kyoto's top matchmaking spot, Jishu Shrine. At first hesitant, the boy is soon persuaded and followed the girl outside. Did you enjoy our video? Be sure to check out these other great videos from the Amagi, and make sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.